How's it going, guys? And welcome to Out of Bounds. I'm your host, James Skrmetta. Did you miss me? What'd you think happened? Did you think I went to Aruba, didn't come back? Were you worried? I had people on Twitter, I had people jumping on me all over the place saying, hey man, what's going on? What's going on? Where's the James Skrmetta experience? Where's Out of Bounds? What's happened? Did you go big time? Don't worry. I haven't gone big time yet. I just took a little holiday break. I thought about doing a Christmas special with the JSC, but I said, you know what? I'm going to unplug. I'm going to unwind. I'm going to come back hot. I'm going to come back fresh for 2016. That's exactly what we've done from today until, who knows, till the big time, I guess. Everything will go smoothly as usual. We will do an episode of Out of Bounds on Monday and Friday, and we will do the James Skrmetta Experience on Tuesday evenings. So don't you fret. Your favorite part of the week is back. I'm here to save you. I'm here to save you from the garbage content that you're fed elsewhere. You know, whether it's your local sports radio, the local news, the whatever Comedy Central's putting out there, I'm here to save you. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I don't want to keep you guys for too long, and we also have an absolutely stacked show. I know you're missing that. I know you're missing hearing that. You know, last time I put it on the local sports radio, they opened the show. It was this week. Opened the show with college basketball, Kansas and Oklahoma. I know you don't care about Kansas and Oklahoma. Do you think I care about Oklahoma and Kansas? No. Or college basketball for that matter. College basketball is dead. They killed it. They murdered it. So we're going to open the show with Sean Payton's return to New Orleans. I've been very vocal on one side of that, so I will address it. We'll talk Alabama Clemson, a little game called the National Championship's coming up. And I know you care about that. I know you care about college football. I know you care about the SEC. We'll talk some NFL playoffs. And of course, I will give you some gambling predictions. And I will also make a little bitty note, a little talk about Ken Griffey Jr.'s Hall of Fame induction. And just kind of what it meant to me to see the kid get in. So let's start the show, shall we? Oh, well, of course, I got to do the house cleaning. You know where to find me. In case you forgot, it has been a couple weeks. You can find me on iTunes. Search James Skrmetta. Download the podcast, the Out of Bound podcast. You can find me on Stitcher, the future of radio. Download the app, the Stitcher app. We have partnered with Stitcher. Over 40,000 podcasts are on there. Not just any podcast, okay? You have to apply. You have to be accepted. You get sorted. You get compared with others. If you listen to me, then Stitcher will create a station for you that gives you the Bill Simmons podcast, gives you other sports podcasts of the highest quality. It's me and Simmons up there. All right, you know Bill Simmons? Me and Simmons up there at Stitcher. Stitcher's saying, hey guys, y'all are the golden horses. Run with it. So download the Stitcher app, the future of radio. We're there, which means it's top class. You can also find the visual video of this. If you want to see my face, want to see what I'm wearing. Spoiler alert, it's disappointing. Go to YouTube, search James Skrmetta. My channel will pop up, which will give you every single episode of the James Skrmetta Experience and also every single simulcast of Out of Bounds and any other shenanigans we do. So let's go ahead and get into this. All right. There was some talk. There was some murmurs, if you will, down on Bourbon Street about Sean Payton's future with the New Orleans Saints. And Drew Brees' future, for that matter. And if you listen to Out of Bounds, then you know throughout the entire year, I've been incredibly vocal about Sean Payton and about the idea of him at the helm of the New Orleans Saints. I've also been very vocal defending Drew Brees and trying to tell you guys, no, Luke McCown's not the answer. No, Garrett Grace is not the answer. We're not going to go too deep into the Saints season. We'll do that on another podcast when I have more of a singular show. And if Gunkel would quit big timing me, I'd go get Gunkel and we could do the Saints thing together. The Saints were 3 home losses away from 10 wins. 3. Those losses. Detroit, Tampa Bay, and Tennessee. Tennessee's the worst team in the league. All right? You take the Tennessee game away, that's an 8-8 team. That missed Drew Brees. And that Tampa Bay loss, first game of the season, Drew Brees was hurt. Those 2 games, 9-win team. 9 wins. Think about that. In absolutely no way am I saying the Saints are a good team. But I'm saying that 3 losses, 3 home losses, first game of the season, a Monday night game against Detroit, and a game against Tennessee that went to overtime. Those 3 games right there is the difference between the Saints not just being in the playoffs, but the Saints being a 10-win team. If you look at the landscape of the NFL, not a lot of 10-win teams out there. The reason for that is because of the guy named Drew Brees under center who missed games and still almost threw for 5,000 yards with big game Willie Snead as his best receiver. Sean Payton returning, I knew was going to happen. In my heart of hearts. I didn't want it to happen. I knew it was going to happen. Because I know that that's what Drew Brees wants there. You don't start some new thing when your best player, all your chips are on the quarterback. And the quarterback wants the coach, right? Sean Payton and Drew Brees undeniably have trust in each other. They undeniably have some kind of connection. And Drew trusts Sean. Sean trusts Drew. That's why you see a lot of 4th downs where Drew doesn't want us to kick. Doesn't want to kick it. We don't kick it. Sean kind of he's like a whisperer for Drew Brees. Don't make a mistake. He didn't make Drew Brees. Okay, he lucked up into the greatest free agent signing in the history of football, Drew Brees, and this miracle, magical Super Bowl run that happened, and he's kind of piggybacked that and used that as his get out of jail free card, right? I mean, that's pretty much what's happened. What he's also done is make personnel mistake after personnel mistake after personnel mistake and completely whiffed on almost every draft pick. Developing young players does not exist in New Orleans. Kenny Vaccaro, great rookie season, non-existent. Just look at the personnel moves he made last year. And I understand it's not all Sean Payton. Loomis has got his own problems. But it's not like there's a Jerry Jones figure or something like that. I believe that Payton has everything pretty close. Payton definitely has final say in probably everything. So let's just look at some of the offseason moves this past year. Getting rid of Jimmy Graham. I agree you couldn't pay Jimmy Graham. All right? But they did, and they traded him for nothing. At one point, you probably could have traded Jimmy Graham for a top 10 draft pick, maybe 2 first-rounders in consecutive years. I mean, he was a huge commodity. At one point, people thought he was as good as Rob Gronkowski. What do you think you could get for Rob Gronkowski right now? I guarantee you it's more than a washed-up center and a second-round draft pick. Okay? He signed Jarius Byrd. I don't even know if he lives in New Orleans. I have, honest to God, no idea. The amount of defensive backs and safeties that we at one point were paying big money, for us to have the worst secondary in the history of forever is appalling. What else has he done? He kept Rob Ryan for about an entire season too long. What else has he done? Brandon Browner. We'll just move on. We'll move on from that. What else has he done? Darren Sproles, ever heard of him? He don't play in New Orleans no more. I sure wish we had him. C.J. Spiller came to New Orleans. I was an advocate for it. I liked it. Wasn't used properly, in my humble opinion. The personnel decisions is what bothers me about Sean Payton. The team we have right now is not a Super Bowl team at all, whatsoever. We could have won 10 games. I said we were going to win 10 games at the beginning of the year, and we should have won 10 games. Tennessee, Detroit, and Tampa Bay. You've got to beat those teams. Tough year if you're talking about the division, and you have the best team of football is within your division, so you have to get a wild card, which we would have got one with 10 wins. But Sean Payton is not the singular answer to a Super Bowl. He's not Belichick, where it's like, well, I mean, if Brady leaves, we still have Belichick, and Belichick with anybody is really good. You know what Belichick's really good at? Making personnel decisions. That is the reason New England is so great. Yes, they have the greatest quarterback of all time, which I have said plenty of times here on the show. But look at the decisions. People think Tom Brady, and they always have this idea that he doesn't have weapons. And I've said that. He really doesn't. For most of his career, he's succeeded without weapons. Recently, though, Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, even Danny Amendola, Rob Gronkowski, Randy Moss, these are huge impact players. And Brady has absolutely flourished. Not to mention, Belichick may be the greatest. Well, I don't want to say greatest, but he's one of the best at the draft. Deep into the draft, picking players out. Jamie Collins from the University of Southern Mississippi, incredible pick. Great pick. And the Saints now basically have a clean slate as far as the draft goes. We need everything. Everything. On the field, the only thing we don't need is a first-round quarterback. That's the only thing. And notice I said first round, because we need a quarterback. Because Drew is not going to be the quarterback for long. Luke McCown may retire before Breeze. And I don't really trust Garrett Grayson. If we had Bryce Petty back there, or if we had even A.J. McCarron back there or something, I'd say, all right, fine, whatever. But if we can get Cardell Jones in the 4th, 5th round, take him. Why wouldn't you take him? You have to have someone to sit behind Drew. As far as the rest of the offense, we need wide receivers. We need some kind of a weapon at tight end. Defensively, don't even get me started. The only thing that we can do the only thing that we have is, I guess, Cam Jordan. If you're satisfied with Delvin Breaux, I guess Delvin Breaux too. But I don't really like Delvin Breaux. So we need a complete overhaul of the secondary, complete overhaul of linebackers, complete overhaul. We just need everything. So I'm happy that Sean returned in the sense of I'm happy that Drew is comfortable. But if it was between Brian Kelly and Sean Payton, I would take Brian Kelly every day of the week. If this is for Drew, it's like, all right, Drew, look, you got 2 years left. We'll let you have Sean Payton for 2 more years. Try and win one. Whenever you leave, we're probably going to can him and go get somebody else. If that's the case, fine. I'm totally fine with that if that's the case. All right, so that's the deal with Sean Payton. I wrote a little bit about it on my website, jamesskrmetta.com. If you want to go check that out just throughout your day, drop updates on there on the regular. If you don't want to wait Monday and Fridays to hear my thoughts on these things. Next, there's a little football game Monday night. James, don't you do a podcast on Mondays? I do, but obviously the Monday podcast probably won't be able to preview the national championship or talk about after the national championship, so I don't want you to listen to it on Tuesday or something and be like, oh, well, the game's already happened. So we're doing it right now, so you get a full couple of days to ingest it and to understand exactly what I'm thinking. So we saw the semifinal games. Saw the Michigan State, Bama, saw Oklahoma, Clemson. Bama is a real interesting team to me because, y'all have heard my commentary throughout the year. I'm not in love with this Bama team by any means. Offensively, I don't know anybody. Like, you have Coker, you have Derrick Henry. I don't know who their playmaker is, I guess. They don't have an Amari Cooper. They don't have a Julio Jones. They don't have a guy they can kind of utilize in that sense. They have Derrick Henry, but he's not a Reggie Bush, give it to him and let him spin. He's more of a keep plowing ahead. He's like a big axe. Like if you keep hitting the tree with the axe, he'll probably chop it down. But he's not the 4th and 11. Get him in space and see what he can do. So they're weird because, in my opinion, to succeed in this realm of college football, you have to be able to score points. And I don't trust Bama to score points, but recently they're scoring points, like against Michigan State. They absolutely dominated Michigan State, ripped them totally apart. And that's because Michigan State walked directly into their trap, said, hey man, I know it's a trap, but we in it to win it. And they did not win it by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. This is how you beat the University of Alabama. What Alabama wants you to do is Alabama wants you to line up directly in front of them. They want you to say, all right, we're here. We see you. We'll go head up with you, and we'll give you our best shot. And when teams do that, 95% of the time, they get punched right in the face, and they lose. Michigan State, that's exactly what they did. Michigan State lined up and said, we're going to do what we do. And we believe that we're better at doing what we do than you are at stopping us at doing what we do. And you saw what happened. Clemson has to completely, I don't want to say trick Alabama, but they have to bring so much to the table. They have to do so many things to beat Alabama. All Alabama has to do is play their game, and they'll win. Clemson has to work for every single yard, every single first down, and Deshaun Watson has to basically play a Heisman season in one game. He has to do things that we've seen Johnny Manziel do. And if you go watch the Texas A&M game where Johnny beat Alabama, he was that little Heisman trophy, the guy on the trophy, it's like he came to life and was Johnny Manziel for one game. It's like he unlocked a superpower or something. When Ole Miss beat Alabama, they had Alabama had 5 turnovers. You saw the pass that was deflected and caught and the touchdown. You need some serious stuff to happen to beat Alabama. You cannot just be like, all right, let's just play. Yeah, let's play. F it. Let's do it. No, let's play. Let's play. You cannot do that against Alabama. It is not going to work. What they have to do, what Clemson has to do, is they have to spread Alabama out. They have to get some space, and they have to have Deshaun Watson be able to do what he does. He ran the ball like 20-something times against Oklahoma. He ain't going to run the ball 20-something times against this Alabama defense and run for 200 yards. Not going to happen. And if he runs the ball 200 times against Alabama, he probably ain't going to be walking off the field at the end of the game. Because Alabama's defense is nasty. They're raw. They're disgusting. And you don't want your quarterback to try and take 20 carries. On Alabama's offensive side of the ball, I think they're going to pretty much move the ball at will. They might not score at will, but they're going to move the ball at will. What that means is a lot of 50-yard punts, a lot of punts from the 50, pinning Clemson back. Bama is happy to do that. Do not watch an Alabama game like, well, they're punting a lot, so they must not be doing well. They are totally fine with getting their offense 30, 40 yards, punting from the 50, pinning Clemson within the 10, and then pinning their ears back and going at it. And then getting good field position, and then going 30, 40 yards, kicking a field goal, or scoring. They're totally cool with that. That's what happened in the Michigan State game. First half of Michigan State, 10-0, Bama. That 10-0 was the same thing as 200-0. What did Bama do? They punted like 9 times in the first quarter. Bama would take the ball, they'd run it, pass, run it, punt. Michigan State would get it at the 8. Michigan State, run, punt. Oh, they shanked one. Bama gets it at the 40. Bama gets 20 yards, kicks a field goal. Then they get it again, go to the 50, punt. Michigan State, same thing, touchdown. Michigan State was getting swamped, but the score was 10-0. That's what they're going to do against Clemson. The only way that Clemson has a shot in hell in this game is if Deshaun Watson, either Deshaun Watson goes insane. I'm talking nuts. He's just like Vince Young, okay? It's going to take something like that. Or if Clemson gets all the breaks. If Clemson turns into an Ole Miss game where they get, 4 or 5 turnovers, they're getting special plays, maybe a defensive or a special teams touchdown or a trick play, something like that. Something fluky has to happen. If you look at Texas USC, it's not a perfect example because I think Texas is a lot better than Clemson is, but Texas had the 4th down stop with Lindell White. They had Reggie Bush's big fumble. It was 4th and 9. Vince Young ran it in to win the game. Stuff happened. Clemson will need that to happen. Clemson has to keep this game close. I think that if you're watching the game, you're looking for a score, you're looking for a number, I would say somewhere around 24 to 27, that those numbers, 27, 24, that's going to be the winning number. If you're a Clemson fan and you have about 27, you should be all right. If you're a Bama fan and you get to about 27, you're probably going to win the game. So think about it like that, like a race to 27 is kind of how I see this game going. So in my final review of the national championship game, I think Bama will win this game. I think Bama will win something 27 to 13ish, something like that. Maybe even a little higher, maybe 30 to 14, somewhere around there. I don't think it's gonna be close. I think it's gonna be The score may be relatively close, 2 touchdowns, but I don't think the game will be necessarily close. I think it could be Bama really controlling this thing. Really, I mean, they're just playing so strong. Their defense is so strong, and when SEC teams are favored against non-SEC teams, it tends to get a little out of hand at the end whenever the line of scrimmage starts to sway the SEC's way. So I'm saying Bama in a bit of a landslide against Clemson, but we'll talk about that more next week. We may do like a special pod Tuesday or Wednesday to try and talk about the college football season, the national championship, and kind of how everything worked out. So let's go ahead and jump into the NFL real quick. I only have about 8 minutes, so we'll try and do this a little quick. 4 games. Saturday, we have the Chiefs minus 3.5 against the Texans. We have the Steelers minus 3 against the Bengals. Sunday, we have the Seahawks minus 5 against the Vikings. And we have the Packers minus 1 against the Skins. So we'll go ahead and talk about Saturday here. Chiefs-Texans. Earlier in the season, I would have told you the Texans were one of the worst teams in football. They were awful. Couldn't move the ball. Offensively, once they got rid of Ryan Mallett, and I'm not putting this all on Ryan Mallett, but once they got rid of Ryan Mallett, something changed. I don't know if the quarterback situation got better to where they kind of could breathe, they could kind of focus on one guy. Maybe Bill O'Brien could not focus on the locker room and focus on the team. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I know part of what I'm doing here is trying to tell you I know. That's part of the podcast is that I believe that I know, hence you should listen. But I don't know. I don't know what turned Houston around. Their defense relatively stayed the same. DeAndre Hopkins stayed the same. He was maybe the second best receiver in football. I'll tell you this. That's a discussion for another day. DeAndre Hopkins or Odell Beckham Jr. I'm taking DeAndre Hopkins. You might disagree, but that's why I have the microphone. The Chiefs are another interesting team. They might be the most boring team. They might be the most boring team you ever watched. But they get the job done. They get the job done, and in this game, that's what matters. The Chiefs have rattled off a lot of wins and could have won the AFC West. And hell of a team. Alex Smith knows how to win games. I'm taking the Chiefs in that game. And I'm also taking the Chiefs with the points. So by the half point, Chiefs minus 3. Let's do it. It's going to be a low-scoring affair. Don't be surprised if we see like a 13-10 game here. 13-9, something like that. So by that half point. All right, then we got Steelers-Bengals, right? Steelers-Bengals. I don't like the Bengals. I don't like the Bengals at all. I like the Bengals more with A.J. McCarron, to be honest. I don't like Andy Dalton. I don't really like Marvin Lewis. I know it's at Cincinnati, but Pittsburgh, I think it's just a better team. Pittsburgh's a better team, a better quarterback. You know how I do this. I go quarterbacks and coaches, and Pittsburgh's got both. I'm telling you right now, Cincinnati is better going forward with A.J. McCarron. If I was them, I would try and trade Andy Dalton. I bet you could get a pretty penny. For the right team, I'm looking at you, the Jets. Andy Dalton to the Jets is an interesting trade because he's a good enough quarterback to get you to the playoffs, obviously. He's a good enough quarterback to keep you in there, but I think he's peaked. I think he's at his max. And I don't think his max is that much different than A.J. McCarron right now. And I think McCarron can develop into a bit of a, I do not want to say game manager, but a bit of an electric game manager. A guy who can control the game. He understands the game. McCarron has the weird thing, the experience level of he's been under Nick Saban in huge games, 2 national championship games, victories. He's been under Nick Saban. He understands the game. He understands pressure. He understands being part of an incredible team. He understands how to win. And that's important. Those are invaluable. Those are things that you cannot teach. And I don't think Dalton has any of those 3. I think Dalton's a good quarterback, but I do not think he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And I think that the Bengals, if they start Dalton, they have a worse shot to beat Pittsburgh than with McCarron. And I also believe that moving forward, they have a worse shot to win the Super Bowl with Dalton than with McCarron. So then we move on to the NFC. And we've got Seattle, hottest team in football, you could argue. I mean, they just beat Arizona within an inch of their life at Arizona. So they're playing Minnesota. Seattle is minus 5 at Westgate. Our friends in the desert give us the lines, and that's who we go with. If it's me, and they're playing now, don't forget this, they're playing outside of Minnesota. All right, it's 0. 0 degrees. Or as my friends over in across the pond say, Z. Z degrees. Actually, it's not true. I think Z is just Z. 0. I don't know what 0 is. I've made a mistake. That was a cultural mistake from your boy. That's one. You only get one cultural mistake ever. I think Z is just the letter Z. So we'll just scratch that from the record. But I won't edit it because this is an unedited show. Don't forget that. This is unedited. What you hear is what I'm saying off the cuff. If there is a gap, if there is a stoppage, it's for, a sneeze or something. So we're doing this stuff live pretty much. But I'm taking Seattle. I don't believe in Teddy Bridgewater just yet. Peterson's a little banged up. I think Russell Wilson, their team's playing so good right now. They're playing so hot. If it was the beginning of the year, that Seattle team, I'm taking Minnesota. But Seattle's so hot right now that I'm going to take Seattle. Even though it's at Minnesota. Even though it's in the snow. I don't know if it's going to be snowing, but in 0 degrees. Marshawn Lynch is playing. I think it's going to be a beatdown. I think Seattle right now is grooving, and they are destined to play Carolina. And I think those are the two best teams in the NFC. A lot of people are saying Arizona. A lot of people still believe Arizona is the best team in the NFC, and I don't know if I buy into that. At one point, yes. But it's hard for me to watch a systematic beatdown that Arizona suffered at home against Seattle, and then for you to tell me that that same team is going to beat Seattle and beat Carolina on the road, to win the NFC. I just don't see it. And I think I really don't know because I like Carson Palmer a lot, and I don't think Russell Wilson's better than Carson Palmer. And you could argue that Arizona's receiving core is better than Seattle, and you could argue that Seattle has a better running game, but you could argue that Arizona's defense is pretty damn close to Seattle. So, I don't know. It's just something about Arizona I don't believe yet, and I don't know if they'd beat Seattle or Carolina. So, I'm going to give Seattle the win against Minnesota. Packers-Skins, last game. Interesting, in Washington, Kirk Cousins is probably the hottest quarterback in the NFL right now, and Green Bay can barely function as a team. I mean, they're a disaster. For a quarterback that good as Aaron Rodgers is, to play this poorly, this long this season. I mean, they have played bad for weeks. And it's not bad like, they're just getting beat. They're playing bad at the point where it's like, I don't know if they can get a playoff. I don't know if they can just call plays. Like, I don't know if McCarthy's calling the plays. I don't know if Rodgers is calling the plays. I don't know if an offensive coordinator is calling the plays. But it's not going right. And I'll tell you this right now. Let's just say they lose to Washington. I guarantee you McCarthy's not the head coach next year. I guarantee you they make a coaching change. Because I think him and Rodgers are butting heads. I think Rodgers wants to call plays, and I think that's a bad decision first off. But I think there's a little rift there. And I would not be surprised at all if they made a coaching change because things are seemingly going worse faster than they're going better. This is a team who people thought should win the Super Bowl for the past 2 years. Rodgers is now falling into that. I mean, people this year were comparing him to Michael Jordan, and they can barely score 20 points. So I'm going to take Washington because I love Kirk Cousins more than you love your mother. That's how much I love Kirk Cousins. And they're having you like that terrible towels waving in Washington? I love the guy. If I could pick one team to win the Super Bowl right now, I would pick the Washington Redskins. And Kirk Cousins may be my favorite player in the league. So that's what I'm going to say about that. We're going to end this thing. I think I went a little bit over. Talking about Ken Griffey Jr. Ken Griffey Jr. was inducted into the Hall of Fame 3 votes off of 100% voting. He has the highest percentage, beating Tom Seaver for highest percentage of votes to get in the Hall of Fame. He's beaten Greg Maddux. He's beaten Randy Johnson, Willie Mays. Anyone in the Hall of Fame, Griffey is voted on that he should be in there at a higher percent. And I just want a quick thing about Junior. It's a really interesting, and we really do need to delve into this topic more, and I'm sure we will on another day. And feel free to chime in on the comments below. Ken Griffey Jr. is a really interesting kind of paradox because since he's retired, he's been kind of a weird kind of a weird guy where he doesn't do a lot of interviews. When he does do interviews, they're not great. He's not like this super charismatic guy. He's kind of gotten bigger. So he's this big kind of guy you don't see a lot. I don't want to say recluse, but you don't see him a lot. He doesn't do too much. He's not like an analyst or anything. There was that famous interview with I think Linda Cohn, where it was just like the most awkward interview ever, and people were killing Griffey about it. And it's almost like this Michael Jordan thing where you don't know if his teammates liked him or if you don't know if there's a little bit of a rift. But as far as the fans go, Griffey it's almost a fact that he's the most popular player ever. And a lot of people, including me, if you were to ask me who the greatest baseball player of all time is, I'm going to say, and this is the sentence you'll hear, the greatest baseball player I've ever seen play is Ken Griffey Jr. Because if you do it statistically, I don't know if Griffey Jr. is in the top 10. I mean, you could make a really easy argument that Barry Bonds was way better than Jr. just for the years before Bonds started doing steroids. Like just like Bonds' first 8 years or whatever versus Griffey's, it's like, well, I mean, Bonds' are obviously better numbers. He was the better player. Griffey never won a championship. He wasn't like a postseason superstar. The Mariners were never that great. He went to Cincinnati, kind of got hurt. Cincinnati was obviously never that great. And that was about it. The 98 home run season chase, he obviously lost to Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, and I mean, he doesn't have the home run record or anything. He's won a couple home run derbies, and that's all she wrote. And people even kind of forget what kind of a player he was. You know, people say, well, he was really athletic. Well, he never really stole a lot of bases. If you go look at his stats, you forget that like Barry Bonds stole more bases. You think Griffey Jr. swiping 60 bags a year? He didn't. He was like a 15 to 20 stolen base guy. So you really look at it, it's like, well, what am I missing? What am I tricking my brain? And I thought about this all day today, really since Griffey got in the Hall of Fame, because I was 9 years old when Ken Griffey Jr. was in the 1998, the summer of '98, where him, McGwire, and Sosa were chasing the home run record. And '99 is whenever Griffey did the home run derby in Boston. I was 9 years old in '98, and I remember I lived in South Mississippi in an undisclosed location where now this lavish studio is. And I remember every single kid at my elementary school, whether you like baseball or not, had a Seattle Mariners 24 jersey. And whether you were right-handed or not, every single kid, at least in practice, stood left-handed, did the wiggle, the Griffey wiggle, and tried that swing. And it was crazy because you could not do that swing right-handed. It's impossible. So you have to shift left-handed, and you got to kind of do the wiggle. And in wiffle ball, like games like that really didn't matter. Everyone batted left-handed. And everyone wanted to wear teal. Everyone wanted to wear the Seattle Mariners colors. Everyone wanted Junior shoes. Everyone wore their hats backwards. He was always smiling. Like, he was a transcendent player for a lot of different reasons. He was charismatic without being... You want to say he's like a huge personality, but he really wasn't. He never talked. You never heard him. You just saw him. You just saw the smile, and you saw him play. But he was never, he wasn't like Kobe Bryant or someone where he was like fierce or he was in your face or he was aggressive. He was just kind of like this guy who's playing. That's why they call him the kid. He was just playing. And it's something that I guess resonated with not just kids but with adults. That this guy, this probably the most natural baseball player to ever live, in the middle of the steroid era, was just out there playing. And he was doing it just as good as everyone else. And the thing that I would say about Ken Griffey Jr. is that he was so good is that all the players around him had to cheat to try and keep up with Ken Griffey Jr. And if steroids would have never been in baseball, there's a good chance that Griffey Jr. would be the greatest player of all time. And he would be the home run leader, and he would have the most home runs in the season and most home runs of all time. And but we'll never know. And that's part of baseball that is tainted. The Bond stuff and the Sosa stuff and the A-Rod stuff, and it is what it is. But it makes me feel old, I guess, that Junior is going into the Hall, because I grew up with that team and that player, and like on Nintendo 64, Ken Griffey Jr. Slugfest. I'm sure a lot of you, if you're my age, played that, where you had the cheat code where Junior always hit a home run. Not only did he play the game, he was also the analyst, like the color commentator for that game. But I don't want to go on a too long diatribe. This might be the longest podcast we've done, but I just want to say that Ken Griffey Jr., aside from Chipper Jones, the team that I rooted for was the Braves. But Ken Griffey Jr. is one of my favorite all-time players in any sport, and I love that he's getting this kind of recognition. I wish he would have got the 100%, the first ever 100% Hall of Fame vote, because it's not that he's 100% the best ever, because like I said, he's beaten like Willie Mays and Tom Seaver and Randy Johnson and Greg Maddux, and like Maddux and Johnson, they should have got 100% too. But Junior, it's not just about talent. It's not just about physical feats. It's about how you play the game. And it's about who you are. And Junior was the good guy. He was like the pillar of good in this era of cheating, in this era of black. You had Ken Griffey, he wasn't. And you had the Yankees and these powerful teams, and you had Junior playing for Seattle. So it takes me back a little bit, and it's not emotional or anything, but it's great to see Junior in the Hall, and I'm sure if you're anywhere between the ages of 24 and 40, then Junior was a big part of you when you were growing up and when you fell in love with the game. And a lot of the reason you fell in love with the game is because you watched someone who loved to play the game as much as Ken Griffey Jr. So that's what I'll say about that. And like I said, always leave the comments below, whether you are on Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, whatever, or hit me up on Twitter. And I'm always up to have a conversation with the listeners. Really appreciate it, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. You will hear from me again on Monday for, I guess, a recap of the NFL playoffs. And then that night will be the national championship. Also, don't forget to check out JamesSkrmetta.com for any other updates. Check out my social media, Twitter, all that stuff. Guys, I will see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. This has been Out of Bounds. See you guys.